Welcome, guys. I know it's been a long time since we've last met, but we're going to continue on with our section in the Constitution, talking about Article 1, the Congress. If you remember the last time we met, we discussed the two houses of Congress, the requirements and terms for those chambers. In the House of Representatives, which you can see down in the bottom right-hand picture, members of the House serve 2-year terms. And you remember that's because we want to reflect the constant changing will of the people. So theoretically, every 2 years, there can be a new group of members of the House. They're chosen by state population. About every 720,000 people gets a vote, if you remember. In this map here, you can see the number of representatives per state. The minimum is 1. The most is a state like California with 53, which obviously makes sense. In the House, you have to be 25 years old to be a member, a 7-year citizen of the United States, and you have to live in the state that you represent. The number is capped at 435. If you live in Washington, D.C., you do get 3 members of the House, but they don't actually get to vote, so they're kind of useless. In the Senate, Senate members serve 6-year terms. Remember, we want a lot less change. You could not originally vote for your senators. You could only vote for members of the House. They're supposed to be the higher of the houses, the more important ones. So we were originally going to let basically the smart people pick. To be a member of the House, you have to be 30 years old, a 9-year citizen of the United States, and again, live in the state that you represent. Those things are really important. Now, what is the actual job of Congress? Well, as we've talked about, it's to make laws, right? So you propose bills on the floor of the House or the Senate, and they become a law. This is where you want to take out your handout on how a bill becomes a law, and we're going to follow along with Schoolhouse Rock as they educate us on how we make laws. So hopefully after seeing that video, you realize this process is incredibly complicated, and we do it on purpose. It's meant to be this way. Quickly to review, you need a simple majority of both the House and the Senate. That means just 51% of members of each House have to agree to a bill. It then goes to the president's desk. It can be approved or denied. If it's approved, it becomes a law. If not, it gets sent back to the House or the Senate for revision. And we'll talk more about that when we get to the vetoes in our section on the presidency. Now, there is a weird exception to this rule, and it's called the filibuster. The filibuster only exists in the Senate, and it's a bizarre power that was written into the Constitution that senators now use really as a weapon. And what it allows you to do is talk a bill to death. A member of the Senate, if a vote is about to be taken on a bill, will go on the floor of the Senate and invoke a filibuster, and he will talk and talk and talk and talk, all in the means of hoping to delay that vote so people will be forced to compromise. The longest one ever was completed in 1957. Strom Thurmond, filibustering the Civil Rights Act, spoke for 24 hours and 18 minutes consecutively, all to prevent a bill from being passed. Much more recently, Ted Cruz from Texas spoke for almost 23 hours while reading Green Eggs and Ham, which you can see in this next video. It doesn't require that senators actually talk about the bill at all. It's just meant a way to delay the bill from voting, and hopefully people will get so annoyed they'll want to make some changes. You can break a filibuster. You need 60 votes in support of a bill, and then it will go to the floor for voting. A weird exception that we have really uses a weapon now by the minority parties if they don't approve a bill to hope and pray for some kind of compromise. Now, what things can be passed? Well, this is a really, really interesting thing the Founding Fathers did, and it's called the Elastic Clause. It's a small thing they put in Section 8 of Article 1 that allows Congress to make any laws which it shall deem, quote, necessary and proper. It means Congress can pass basically any law it wants about anything. We don't have any laws originally or anything written in the Constitution about the internet, about aviation, about transportation, nothing like that. And yet, we can pass laws about it anytime we want because Congress put this clause in. And it makes it, in my opinion, and most constitutional scholars' opinion, the most important branch of government because it can pass a law about literally anything it wants as long as it's, quote, necessary and proper, whatever that means. If we were to look at the individual houses, we'll take a look at the Senate first. The Senate, like I said, is much more important. It's the higher house. You could not vote for your senators originally. They serve longer terms, right? It's harder to become one. And they have some powers that the House does not. One of them we talked about is the filibuster, which is a really cool power. Another one is they must approve anytime a treaty is made by the president with another country, or the president appoints someone to a federal judgeship or to a position in his cabinet. They must be approved by the Senate. And the idea here is we want to make sure that the president isn't doing things that are bad for the country, right? Making treaties with foreign countries that might hurt us, or appointing people to positions they don't belong in. The other one that is much more relevant to us now is impeachment. And I'll go way into more detail about how impeachment actually works when we do the presidency. But if there is a trial for an impeached president, then it is held in the Senate. And the 100 senators, you need 67 votes for a guilty verdict, which would remove the president from office. It's never happened. The closest we've ever come in 1868, Andrew Johnson was 1 vote short of impeachment. But ever since then, we haven't been close at all. The House of Representatives, the other house, right, we said is a lot less important. And it has far less powers, right? It's a lot easier to become one. One thing that is very important is they have the power of what's called oversight. So if they want to investigate literally anything, there are 21 committees that exist that they can subpoena, which means they can force someone to come testify or submit evidence about anything they want. And this is most recently done in the House with regards to President Trump. They can use that information if they want to file articles of impeachment, which are basically just charges. And then it gets sent over to the Senate. The other one that does make the House kind of important is that any kind of taxation, appropriation, spending, budget, anything involving money must start in the House, then goes to the Senate. And we do that because the large states are going to be the ones that are paying most of the taxes, right? They have the largest population. They'll be paying most of the taxes. So we want them to have the opportunity to decide what should happen. They have larger representation in the House, so they get more of a say here.